Hi, I'm Steve Shelburne, owner and operator of Shelburne RV here in beautiful Cleveland, Tennessee. All right, good morning. Got a 2010 Winnebago Journey. Came into the shop with a basement air problem. I know a lot of people are scared of the basement airs, but I will tell you, I like working on them. They're a great product. They do have some issues if you do have to pull them out, but typically they work pretty good. Little few issues I had with some of the control boards, obviously capacitors, relays, that kind of stuff does give a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to show you this right here, what we're doing. First thing we got to do, got to get all this opened up. Typically a few screws in this panel here got to be pulled out, and then from up underneath here, typically there's some screws that hold this door assembly latched while you're driving down the road. So then once you get all this open, we're going to take the screws off this panel. And then I'm just kind of looking at this. You can see here, this is the newer style board. Relays are all looking pretty good. Don't see any burned wires, any burn marks. Capacitors are here and in place. Now, one thing I'm not liking is there's something obviously going on top of those capacitors right there. So we're definitely going to want to look at that and see what's going on. But we're going to get out the clamp on meter so we can see what compressor 1, compressor 2 does. And then if we do have to pull it out, which very well could be, we don't know yet until we get into this and do a little bit more diagnosis. But even if we don't pull it out, we're going to go ahead and try to get all this cleaned up and service the coils and get all that done. But everything else, don't see no burnt wires or anything of that nature. So we're going to go ahead and get the 50 amp hook up to it, and then we're going to run this thing and see what it does. All right, so we got the capacitor out on these basement air we're working on. And of course, first thing, remember I was showing you in the video where it had the terminals that were all nasty on it. Well, look at here, just look real close. When I went in here to check the capacitor to make sure it was actually doing what it was supposed to do, the wire terminations obviously broke right off. And as nasty as those are, we got to find out whether or not they're checked out good. So you can see I've got my meter set up right there for checking capacitance. And so we're going to check right here on the tips of this to see what we got. And you can watch my meter down here. Now these are supposed to be 88 to 130. That right there, okay, going into test mode. So 180, 193, 195. So obviously I don't want to use those because, again, 108 to 130. I was mistaken on that, but 108 to 130. So we're obviously not inside that parameter that they're calling for. And the capacitors that I had here at the shop are actually 88 to 108. So I don't want to use those. So I've actually got some ordered from my local supplier. And when I went in here and checked line voltage, first thing, line 2, the breaker was actually thrown. So it may be just as simple as capacitors obviously not doing what they were supposed to do. So we're going to get in some new capacitors. I'm going to re-terminate these wires and put some new female connectors on there, so that way they're all fresh. And then once the connectors come in, we're going to retest them. All right, so we got the capacitors back in this unit, and what I'm looking at is I want to see good amp draw on these compressors. That's compressor 1, looks like about 1210, and then so this is going to be compressor 2 running about 1220. Typically I want to see about an amp difference between the two. If we've got about an amp difference between the two, then we know we've got good amp draw, everything's working good, compressors are working good. Now this system is split into two parts. One is compressor 1's up here, compressor 2's down here. And biggest thing right now is I'm just looking for heat. We got good heat, so that tells me if the charge is good or not. Now one thing is, I've had this running for about 20 minutes, and you can see all the water that's puddling up inside where it's pulling the moisture out of the inside the coach. So we've got good air, good air temperatures. So I'm going to go inside, and I've already put a thermostat in the ceiling so we can see what that differential temperature is. Typically we want to see about 20 degrees differential temperature. And so right now you can see the thermostat showing about 81 degrees. We've got it set at 69. And then I've got this little thermostat here inside the ceiling, and you can see that one there's reading about 50 degrees. So that tells us we got good charge on the unit. Everything's working right. The compressors are doing right. We've got a good charge. The differential obviously is a good 20 degrees. So I'm very pleased with how this unit's doing. So the biggest thing is now we're just gonna clean those coils up, make sure everything's good. We know that the unit is charged good and everything's working good. So we'll just do a quick cleaning on it and should be good to go back to the customer. All right, so we got the basement air shut down. We've checked all our differential temperatures, compressors are working good, everything's just where it needs to be. So I'm going to do a quick coil clean. The product I use is this coil cleaner made by Hilco Corporation. Stuff's made down in Atlanta, Georgia. They also make a Hilco lube, which I have been using for several years, and some of the best lube that I've ever used as far as penetrating oil on bolts, lubing up slides. WD-40 is good. I like the Hilco lube. It works good. So we're going to go ahead and get this coil. Got a little bit of debris on the corners. I usually just wet it down a little bit. And then this Hilco coil cleaner, which is a no rinse. You don't have to rinse it. I do rinse it just because I like to get everything cleaned out of there, but obviously just got to get it in that coil right there so we can get that stuff working. Used a lot of coil cleaners over the years, and some of them have just a nasty smell to them. This stuff here is just so good to work with. I don't have any complaints from customers as far as foul smell problems that way. So they like it, and I don't have to worry about having complaints about it. So I go and get these little brushes down at Harbor Freight. They work good for this. This one here is a little brass brush. I used to use the real wide ones, but the wide ones, sometimes I don't get the ability to clean like I do sometimes. So I like these little short ones. They work really good. And so the biggest thing is I'm just trying to get all the coils just cleaned out here and get the trash pulled out of it. Now, these coils that are kind of bent over right here, they make a little rake tool to go in there, but you see how these are kind of curved? They got a little bit of a wobble to them. I've never really gotten that rake tool to work very well for me, and you can spend hours going in here and cleaning that. I mean, they're not really bent over. They got a few right there that are bent over, but really, they're not bad in comparison to some we see. Now I got that all done, we're just gonna give that a quick rinse. Now, remember, the stuff I use is you don't have to rinse, but I do. It just gets all the little bit of surface debris and all that off of there. All right, everything looks good on that. We're gonna put the cover back on. You can see all the suds coming out of there, just getting it all cleaned out good. And then we're gonna put the cover back on this. Get everything closed up, and this gentleman should be good to go. If you questions or comments, would like to call and ask questions about basement air, my phone number is listed at the beginning. Just give me a call and we'll see what we can work through with you. Obviously, we enjoy working on these. They're fun to work on for us. So like I said, if you got any questions or comments, please call.